Figures with no arms and hollow eyes carved into Utah's red rock might be gods or something else that came down from the sky. Deep in a Mexican cave, explorers claim they've found ancient stones that show aliens trading corn with humans. And in the dark tunnels of a South African cave, a species with chimp-sized brains somehow left behind the world's oldest known symbolic art. These are more ancient cave markings that show advanced technology. In Utah's Sego Canyon, there's a mysterious stretch of ancient rock art. Some of these carvings are over 8,000 years old. They don't look like your typical cave drawings of hunters or animals. Instead, they're these tall, kinda eerie figures with huge hollow eyes, no arms or legs, and in some cases, what look like antennae sticking out of their heads. They look kinda like robots from 1950s B-movies. Naturally, this has caught the attention of people who believe in the ancient astronaut theory. Basically, that maybe these ancient people had actual encounters with visitors from space. One of the standout images is called the Barrier Canyon Holy Man. And here, this towering figure is surrounded by smaller, shadowy people. Clearly, the tall figure is the important one. But were they drawing something they just imagined, or was this something they actually saw and decided to document? So here's a wild one. A group of explorers in Mexico claim that they've found actual proof of ancient contact with aliens. They were digging around in a set of caves between Veracruz and Puebla, and they pulled up what they're calling the stones of the first encounter. Basically, carved artifacts showing beings with long heads, big oval eyes, and even what look like spaceships. One of the stones apparently shows an alien handing over what looks like a corn cob to a ruler. The group said their search has, quote, yielded totally unexpected results, and they genuinely believe they found the ultimate evidence that alien beings visited Earth thousands of years ago. Local legends talk about a mysterious ship that's been hidden in the area since ancient times, and that's what drew the explorers there in the first place. According to Jose Aguayo, the National Institute of Anthropology and History won't touch this discovery. It's not typical archaeology, he said. And if INAH ever did recognize the artifacts, it would, quote, basically accept one of the most denied facts, the existence of beings not from Earth. Deep inside South Africa's Rising Star cave system, so deep you've got to crawl through tight, pitch-black tunnels to even reach it, archaeologists found engravings that might be the earliest symbolic art ever made. And no, they weren't made by Homo sapiens. The markings, which are made up of lines and crosshatches, some seeming to be crude depictions of animals even, were carved into the rock walls near what appears to be a burial site. But if it wasn't Homo sapiens who etched them though, who was it? A distant human cousin called Homo naledi. They had smaller brains, only about a third the size of ours, but somehow they were making art. This turns out to be legit symbolic art. We're talking about a species that supposedly wasn't smart enough to do this kind of thing, actually doing it. And that messes with the whole bigger brain equals more advanced culture idea. As archaeologist Lee Berger put it, this could rewrite the story of human evolution. In 2022, researchers using 3D scanning technology discovered massive ancient glyphs carved into the walls and ceiling of a cave in northern Alabama. No one had noticed them before because you literally couldn't see them without 3D scans. Some of these figures stretch over 7 feet long and were carved into the low ceiling, meaning the people who made them had to lie on their backs in the dark to do it. The designs include snakes, human-like figures, and shapes, and they're estimated to be over 1,000 years old. It's believed they were made by the Mississippian culture, but nothing else like this has been found in their art, and whoever etched these would have had to have been pretty serious about it. I mean, these figures were carefully carved into the rock. It's hard to reach, and even harder to see. That alone makes it feel like they were hiding something possibly important. Maybe it was part of some ceremony, or maybe it was a message meant for someone in the future. Some researchers think this could have been a symbolic system, a way to pass on ideas or maybe even warnings that we still don't understand. Either way, the size, the location, the weirdness of it all, it makes it hard to believe it was just a random decoration. I mean, after all, it wasn't out in the open. Who'd get to appreciate it? Yeah, these carvings are weird. The Valcamonica petroglyphs found in northern Italy are one of the biggest collections of prehistoric rock art in Europe. Over 140,000 carvings spread across the valley, most of them are pretty typical for ancient times. You have animals, tools, hunters, ritual scenes, but then you've got these two figures. They've got bulky bodies, what look like tight-fitting suits, and big round heads with what appear to be antennae or helmets. Some people say they look exactly like astronauts. So people who are really into ancient alien type stuff love to point to these two figures as possible proof that early humans might have encountered visitors from another planet, beings wearing spacesuits. Another popular theory is that they might be visitors from the future, which is definitely a fun idea too. Now, obviously these could also be stylized depictions of gods or warriors. Definitely could be the case, but the truth is, nobody really knows for sure, because there's no writing to explain what the artists were trying to get across. In Talampaya National Park in Argentina, you'll find these strange carvings etched into the walls, some of them dating back around 2,000 to 3,000 years. They're known as the petroglyphs of the Ciénaga culture, and while some of them show normal stuff like animals, others are a bit harder to explain. One figure in particular that gets brought up a lot is this one here. Look at the big round heads, the lack of a face. They almost look like they're wearing helmets, like spacesuits. The proportions are way off from typical human figures, and there are no clear weapons or tools or clothing to suggest it's a hunter or a warrior. Of course, this is where, again, the ancient alien theories come in. People think these carvings might show beings that early humans saw but didn't fully understand. In 2023, archaeologists digging around the Karga Oasis in Egypt, about 100 miles west of Luxor, came across a weird rock panel. It's now got people debating what the hell it actually shows. At first glance, the carvings look like spiders, webs, maybe bugs caught in the web, and that's exactly what Egyptologist Salim Ikram said it was. Most of the headlines ran with that version of the story. Creepy prehistoric spiders etched into stone, cool enough, but some researchers think there might be more to this. Dr. Derek Cunningham came out with a totally different angle. He believes the patterns are actually ancient astronomy. They line up with important numbers used to predict solar and lunar eclipses. For example, he says the spider-looking shapes are tilted at exactly 13.66 degrees, which matches half of a sidereal month. That's basically how long it takes the moon to line up with the same distant stars again. Then there's Michael Leto, who thinks the symbols represent constellations and zodiac signs, possibly used for some kind of star map. So in a bunch of European caves, researchers started noticing weird marks next to the animal paintings. Not the animals themselves, but symbols, repeating shapes like dots, slashes, crosses, and these odd Y figures. First, everyone figured it was just a really early form of board doodling, but a study in 2023 argued something much bigger, that this might be the world's oldest form of writing. They don't always seem to be random marks, they follow patterns. Researchers think these early humans, some 20,000 years ago, were actually keeping track of time. Specifically, they were recording when certain animals mated or migrated by marking lunar months. One of the lead researchers said it's a, quote, really big deal cognitively, going on to explain it shows they were organizing information outside of their brains, on surfaces, which is basically the first step toward writing and recording data. They were tracking breeding cycles, trying to predict animal behavior, and to think this kind of thing could have been going on during the Ice Age inside pitch black caves, well, that's pretty wild. Deep in southern Russia, in a spot called the Skelnovsky Grotto, now it's kind of hard to tell based on these images, but archaeologists studied some rock carvings here and found that they look a lot like someone's first-hand account of a meteor crashing to Earth. The petroglyph dates back to the Bronze Age. It shows what seems to be a giant object falling from the sky, breaking into pieces, and scattering debris. Researchers think this might be the earliest known eyewitness record of something like this. An ancient person trying to document a meteor explosion the only way they could, by carving it into rock. One team even matched the direction the object was moving in the carving to real landmarks on the ground, like blast zones and impact craters nearby, and it lines up. So whoever made this wasn't just telling a story, they were recording something they saw, something that would have been utterly terrifying, by the way. They probably thought the world was ending. In the remote Kimberley region of northwestern Australia, you'll find the Wanina cave paintings, ancient Aboriginal artwork that shows figures that are nothing like the usual stick figure hunting scenes or animal drawings you see in other parts of the world. Instead, the Wanina are drawn with big round heads, little mouths or no mouths at all, massive black eyes, and white faces that almost look like they're glowing. Some are surrounded by halos or lines that shoot out from their heads. And if you're thinking, well, that kind of sounds like your classic alien in modern day, well, you're not alone. The local Aboriginal people say the Wanina are powerful ancestral spirits, sky beings that brought law, culture, and even rain. Some believe these aren't just mythological spirits, but actual beings that ancient people saw with their own eyes. The mouthless faces, the oversized eyes, the auras, they all feel oddly familiar in today's world of UFO sightings and alien reports. Were the Wanina just ancient gods, or something they imagined, or could they have been an entity that showed up in the sky thousands of years ago? A giant stone platform in Bolivia looks suspiciously like a landing pad, but nobody really knows what it was for. Hidden under Malta, an ancient stone chamber vibrates people's bodies and brains with sound frequencies scientists still don't fully understand. And in Turkey, carvings from over 11,000 years ago might have been tracking the stars or marking time way before humans were supposedly able to do that. These are more ancient rock markings that show advanced technology. Way out in Bolivia, there's this massive carved bedrock known as Samipata, basically a giant flat stone plaza with weird channels and patterns etched into it. Ancient people carved long grooves, circles, and snake-like shapes into the rock. It's famous for being shaped a bit like a landing pad. Some even believe this may have actually been a landing pad. For what? Well, ancient alien ships maybe? A stretch, sure, but it's an interesting idea. The UNESCO description calls it a ceremonial platform that got used by multiple cultures. The Shawnee, Inca, then the Spanish built on top, but the exact purpose isn't totally clear. So yeah, unless you're buying into the alien landing pad theory, the patterns most likely have something to do with ceremonies or water flow during rituals. Deep underground in Malta, there's this ancient structure called the Hypogeum, and one room inside is known as the Oracle Chamber. It's carved entirely from stone, and if you speak or chant in there, the sound bounces around in a very strange way. Certain tones, especially deep male voices, can cause the whole room and even people standing in other rooms to vibrate. Scientists tested the chamber and found that it naturally amplifies sound at around 110 hertz. That's a really specific frequency, and it just so happens to be close to what brainwaves produce during trance states. So some believe the room was built to create an altered state of consciousness on purpose, like maybe it was used in rituals to connect with something beyond the physical. Gobekli Tepe is over 11,000 years old. That alone is wild. This place was built before the wheel, before farming really took off, and long before metal tools. But what makes it even weirder is the stuff carved into the stone. These massive T-shaped pillars are covered in animals like lions, snakes, vultures, scorpions, and these odd V-shapes and circles that some people think weren't just for decoration. There's this theory that those V-shapes actually form a kind of calendar, a whole system that tracks months, lunar cycles, and even adds extra days to stay in sync. Basically, people think these carvings might show the builders had a better grip on timekeeping than anyone expected for that era. Others say the whole site might have been designed to line up with specific stars like Sirius or mark things like the summer solstice, which sounds pretty crazy when you realize this was built thousands of years before Stonehenge. There's still debate over what it all means, but even if they weren't charting the stars or inventing calendars, something complex was going on here. In the middle of the desert in southern Peru, you'll find hundreds of rock carvings at Toro Muerto. Most are animals like cattle and felines, but some look like this. More human-like figures, but with huge, round heads that almost look like they're wearing helmets or masks. To fans of ancient technology, those helmets look suspiciously like protective headgear, or maybe even diving suits. Archaeologists say these carvings are part of the Huayacaya culture dating back to 500 CE or so, and probably had some kind of spiritual meaning, but there is something rather sci-fi about them too. Of course, there's no proof it has anything to do with some long-lost ancient technology, but the imagery does make some wonder if they'd been inspired by something not from this world. Rongo Rongo is this mysterious set of carved symbols found on Easter Island. It's found on tablets, staffs, and on the walls of caves, and no one's been able to decode it. There are only about 27 surviving pieces, all weathered or burned, scattered across museums. We've got around 400 unique glyphs, and they're written in a weird back and forth way called reverse boustrophodon. That means you read one line from left to right, then you flip the tablet upside down and read the next line from left to right again. It's like the symbols were carved facing opposite directions on every other line. So the reader had to keep flipping the board back and forth to follow it. So we know how it's supposed to be read, we just don't know what any of it actually says. Some researchers say a few signs seem to count moon cycles or track stuff like family lines or rulers, but we still can't say for sure. Sitting in a quiet little town in Japan, there's this massive rock called Ishi no Hoden. It's huge, about 600 tons, and somehow it looks like it's floating just slightly above the ground, like it's hovering. When you first see it, the shape is super weird too. It's this almost perfect rectangular block with a chunk cut out on one side, and from certain angles it kind of looks like an old school tube TV. The edges are super sharp, the cuts are clean, it just doesn't look like it was made by accident. People have been trying to figure out how ancient builders carved and moved something this size, and more importantly, why it looks like it's suspended. Well, there's water underneath that fills this little basin carved into the rock below. That's what gives it the illusion that it's floating. But there's still a lot of mystery behind this. How was it made? Why was it made? There were no tools found near the site and no records of how it was built or the purpose behind it. The Palpa region in Peru is basically the lesser known cousin of the Nazca lines. Same kind of thing. There are giant geoglyphs carved into the mountains that are so big you can really only see them from the air. But what makes the Palpa Mountains interesting is that some of these lines and shapes don't just form animals or people, they actually look like runways, like massive landing strips, straight flat paths that stretch across the hills and plateaus with sharp edges and intersecting lines. Some people think this is just ancient ceremonial stuff or astronomy related designs, but others, they think it looks way too much like a place for aircraft to land, which is where you get some alien theories, like maybe these were literal airfields built for flying machines, or at least meant to be seen from above by something in the sky. There's also this one carving near Palpa that's this figure with a huge round head and big eyes, and some say it looks pretty alien. No one really knows who made the Palpa lines or how they kept them so perfectly straight across such uneven terrain. They pulled this off without satellites, drones, or planes, which is pretty impressive. Right off the coast of Israel, under about 30 feet of water, there's this ancient site called Atlit Yam. It's a sunken village that dates back around 9,000 years. And what's weird, it has these massive stone circles and standing stones arranged in a pattern. Some people compare it to a mini version of Stonehenge, except underwater. The stones are set up around a freshwater spring, which makes people wonder if it was used for rituals or energy-related stuff. Now obviously energy centers is a loaded phrase. Nobody found ancient power cords or anything, but some researchers think the layout could have had a deeper meaning of some kind. The big question is how it got underwater as well. Sea levels have risen since the Ice Age, but the idea that a whole village with megalithic stonework just sank and got forgotten, it's pretty wild. Out in Arizona, there's this rock carving made by the Hopi tribe, and for decades people have been debating as to what it really means. It's called Prophecy Rock. It shows a long line with different symbols branching off from it, figures, circles. According to some interpretations, it shows two separate futures. One is a straight path, staying connected to nature and balance. The other path branches off and ends in chaos. Some say it represents a future obsessed with technology, war, and destruction. There are also symbols on it that seem to represent sky-related events like stars and comets. Some people say it's just a traditional story, like a visual way the Hopi passed down their beliefs, but maybe it shows they understood patterns in the sky, maybe even how the planets line up over time. Whether that's true or not, nobody's fully decoded every part of the carving. At the ancient site of Baalbek in Lebanon, there's this massive stone platform that just shouldn't exist, not for the time period anyway. There are blocks that weigh over 1,000 tons each. One of them, the stone of the pregnant woman, is over 70 feet long and still sits half buried in a nearby quarry. These aren't decorative stones. They were meant to be moved and placed, but even today we need some incredibly heavy-duty cranes and logistics to pull that off. This was built over 2,000 years ago. Engineers have no solid answer for how the blocks were transported, let alone how they were placed so precisely. Well, what if the builders had access to some sort of technology that's been lost to time? Others go even further, talking about anti-gravity, that maybe the blocks were floated into place somehow. There's no writing that explains how they did it, no tools were left behind. The Romans did build on top of the platform later, but they didn't move the stones, they just used what was already there.
In our number 9 spot, today we have the Val Camonica petroglyphs in Italy. Nestled in the Italian Alps, Val Camonica is home to one of the world's largest collections of prehistoric petroglyphs, boasting over 140,000 symbols and figures etched into the rock over thousands of years. Among these ancient carvings are intriguing humanoid figures that appear to have halos or rays shooting from their heads. This curious detail has fueled speculations that these artists were depicting astronauts or divine beings, perhaps even hinting at advanced knowledge or technologies far beyond their time. Some wonder if these carvings are eerie predictions of future developments or encounters with otherworldly entities. However, most scholars interpret these radiant figures as representations of spiritual power or significance, possibly depicting deities, shamans, or warriors adorned in ceremonial gear meant to signify their importance within the community. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Temple of Hathor. Deep within the ancient Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, there's a set of carvings that have ignited both wonder and wild theories. These intriguing carvings show what appear to be giant light bulbs, complete with filament-like snakes inside, being supported by priests or deities. Some modern observers have jumped to the electrifying conclusion that the Egyptians not only predicted future technology, but might have actually harnessed electricity long before Thomas Edison lit up the world. Could these carvings be evidence of ancient light bulbs illuminating the pharaoh's temples? While the idea is a spark for the imagination, mainstream Egyptologists offer a different perspective. They explain that these images are deeply rooted in Egyptian mythology, depicting the lotus flower giving birth to a serpent, symbolizing the god Harsomptis and the daily cycle of creation and rebirth. The so-called bulbs are not electrical devices, but spiritual symbols brimming with religious meaning. So while it is fun to think of ancient Egyptians tinkering with tech gadgets, the reality illuminates something perhaps even more fascinating: the rich and complex belief system that inspired some of the most enduring art in human history. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Wanina rock art in Australia. Deep in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, the ancient Wanina rock art mesmerizes with its haunting figures. Beings with large heads, enormous eyes, and no mouths, all enveloped by halos or cloud-like shapes. These striking images, painted by Indigenous Australians thousands of years ago, have sparked all sorts of theories. Some people look at these otherworldly figures and speculate that they're depictions of ancient astronauts or predictions of future encounters with aliens. But when we delve into the rich cultural tapestry of the indigenous communities, a different story begins to unfold. The Wanina are revered ancestral spirits linked to weather phenomena like rain and storms, embodying the very essence of creation and life. The halos and cloud-like forms symbolize their control over the elements, and the absence of mouth signifies that their power is so immense they don't need to speak to exert it.
Coming in at number 5 is the Prehistoric Sistine Chapel. Yes, I'm not kidding you, that's what some people have nicknamed the Lascaux Caves. Located in the southwestern part of France, there are a lot of caves in France on this list, I just realized. The caves have in them more than 600 paintings, mostly of big mammals in the area, humans, and abstract signs. The art inside the cave is meticulously split into those 3 categories. The paintings were the product of a huge combined effort spanning many generations, datations, the earliest painting was done 17,000 years ago. However, there's one painting called the crossed bison that grabbed everyone's attention. The crossed hind legs of the animal create the illusion that one bison is closer to the viewer than the other. The fact that Paleolithic cave painters had that skill and primitive form of perspective is evidence that they were advanced for their time. And funnily enough, the entrance of the cave was found by an 18-year-old walking his dog, and his dog fell into a hole which ended up being the tunnel. The boy came back with 3 friends thinking the tunnel was an entrance into the Lascaux manor, but then they found the paintings. By 1995, the cave had 1,200 daily visitors, but that created a preservation problem because lichens and crystals began to develop, and on top of that they started having a huge fungus problem as well, so they've convened many times to see how they can preserve the cave. At number 4 are the X-ray paintings. The Kakadu National Park is a protected area in the northern part of Australia, and the place is massive. I'm talking the size of the country Slovenia massive. It's also home to one of the Earth's biggest concentrations of rock artwork. Some are nearly 20,000 years old, and they provide an insight into Aboriginal life like nothing else has before. The park has 2 main galleries, Burunkai and Uber. I'm sorry if I pronounced those wrong, I know I did, I'm sorry. For these people, the act of painting was more important than the painting itself, and so they cover older paintings with newer ones. The art shows the objects they use every day, the things they do, and the animals they hunt. Some paintings can only be done by the person with the right knowledge, so someone who had no magic knowledge could not do a sorcery painting, for example. They would paint animals in order to place them in touch with the spirit of that animal, which would hopefully ensure them a successful hunt. But the painters didn't just draw the animals, they drew their organs and their bones as well, which is the first time discoverers had found depictions like that, and hence they were called X-ray paintings. Filling our number 3 slot are the underwater paintings. This one's about the Koski Cave located near Marseille, France. The cave was discovered by a man named Henry Koski back in 1985, but the public only found out about it 6 years later when 3 divers actually got lost and died in the cave. But if you wanted to find the cave today, you would just have to go through a 175-meter long tunnel, which is all well and good, except the entrance to that is 37 meters under sea level. That puts a bit of a spanner in the works, I think. Sadly, 4/5 of the cave's art was permanently submerged underwater and hence destroyed, but 150 pieces of cave art are still intact. Art like hand stencils date back to 27,000 years BP, and the newer art of different animals and signs dates back to 19,000 years BP. People were stunned at the fact that the art was A, underwater, and B, it was partially intact. In circumstances like that, the art would usually be lost, so it was miraculous that it hadn't been, and that's why it deserves the number 3 slot, I think. You guys can disagree. Now at number 2 are the Magura cave paintings. This cave is located in the northwest region of Bulgaria. All the paintings were done from bat poo and are done on stone. This is probably the most extensive series of cave paintings ever found, and they actually cover a range of epochs. The Neolithic, some other ones that I can't pronounce so I'm not gonna try, and even the start of the early Bronze Age. There are more than 700 drawings in the cave, and they fall into 4 groups: zoomorphic, symbolic, anthropomorphic, and geometric figures. The figures are mostly stick figures and not extremely detailed, but it's very easy to grasp what they're trying to depict. The cave was formed nearly 15 million years ago, and you'd have to walk a good 1.6 miles to cover the whole thing. It has one main gallery that includes 6 halls, and the largest one being the Arc Hall that's 69 feet high and 420 feet long. This cave is filled with quote-unquote art and is bigger than nearly all art galleries in the world. No wonder people were shook, I would be too. And finally, at number 1 is the Cave of Hands, also known as Cueva de las Manos. These caves are located in Argentina and are insanely famous for the numerous hands painted inside the caves. The art dates back to 13,000 to 9,000 years ago, and obviously a lot of different groups of people occupied the caves during that time. I mean, some of the earliest artwork has been carbon dated to 7,300 BC. All the hands inside the cave are stenciled, and most of them are left hands, indicating that the people probably used their right hand to hold the spraying pipe, or they sprayed the back of their right hand with their left. It made sense, trust me. Either way, the cave was filled with hands. There was also artwork of full human beings, geometric shapes, hunting scenes, etc. They used mineral pigments to make the images, like iron oxides to get the reds and purples, manganese oxide to make black, and so on. The site became a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in 1999, and people were glad. It's not every day you stumble upon a cave that's filled with sprayed hands dating to 7,300 BC. Just thinking about how much history took took place in that cave and all the different people those hands could have belonged to and what their lives would have been like. I mean, it just blows my mind, it really does. Starting us off at number 10 is the Altamira cave paintings. These cave paintings are located near Santillana del Mar, which is in the northern part of Spain. Funnily enough, the paintings were discovered by accident by a hunter named Modesto Cubillas in 1868, but weren't giving much mind until 1879. These paintings shocked everyone, and I mean everyone. Why? Because it was so well preserved, specialists seriously doubted their authenticity. The paintings were done around 35,600 years ago, yet their colours and details were so vibrant it was quite suspicious. It was only at the start of the 20th century that they were accepted as authentic. These paintings are single-handedly the biggest pieces of evidence of Magdalenian culture, and most depict charcoal and ochre, let me know if that's how you say it, pictures of horses, handprints, and bisons. They were so impressive that Picasso himself said after Altamira, all is decadence. I mean, that's pretty heavy words from Picasso himself. Coming in at number 9 are the aliens. These pictographs were found in the Wanina gorge in Australia. Again, my apologies if I said that wrong. These paintings date back to approximately 3000 BC and they depict the Aboriginal Wanina, I hope I said that right as well, I probably didn't, I'm sorry, which is a type of religious deity or supreme spirit that were the creators of land and people. But the way they've depicted them is just super weird. They literally look like white versions of the alien emojis on our phones. White faces with no mouth and large black holes for eyes, and they also have this sort of halo around them. The other black figures drawn amongst them look like what can only be described as closely resembling dementors from Harry Potter. Some interpretations of these paintings say that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth tens of thousands of years ago and had direct contact with these people. Some Aboriginals believe that they even played a role in creation, which could explain why they drew the Wanjinas looking like aliens. At number 8 we have the Chauvet cave. This one is located in the south of France and only really gained notoriety in 1994 after 3 speleologists discovered its walls were covered in Paleolithic artwork and that it also contained the fossilized remains of various animals, many of which had become extinct by then. So that's a lot of useful scientific and historical knowledge in that cave already, and we haven't even specifically talked about the art yet. The cave shocked people for many reasons. It was ridiculously large, and the quantity and quality of the artwork found was quote-unquote spectacular. It's literally been named a cave that has some of the best preserved figurative cave paintings in the world, which is insane since most of the art there is 30 to 32,000 years old. The paintings had animals in there that had never appeared in previous Ice Age paintings, as well as many other animals that had. Surprisingly, it had no paintings of full human figures, just one figure that seemed to be a vulva attached to an unfinished pair of legs. As of now, it's one of the most significant prehistoric art sites on Earth and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Filling our number 7 slot is Lascaux, Lascaux. There were so many types of pronunciations, I really don't know which one's right. Please don't slate me in the comments. These are the cave formations found in the rural parts of Hargeisa in Somaliland. Even though the cave was known to locals of that area for ages, the caves only gained international attention in 2002 when an archaeological survey was undertaken by French researchers, and they were shocked to find this cave undocumented. The cave contains very vivid paintings which are some of the earliest known cave paintings in the Horn of Africa. The rock art was created between 9000 and 3000 BC, and it's so well preserved till this day because of the granite overhangs. The artwork features cattle in ceremonial robes with humans, and the necks of the cattle are embellished with plastron, which is basically the flat part of a turtle shell. I didn't know that either, but now you do as well. And they also include other animals like dogs and giraffes. The colors on these paintings are so vivid, I would believe if someone told me they literally painted them a month ago rather than thousands of years ago. Now at number 6 are the psychedelics. Tassili Najar is a national park located in southeast Algeria. And of course, these caves also became part of UNESCO's World Heritage Sites list in 1982. Most of the art in there dates back 12,000 years, and there are more engravings than there are paintings. There are 15,000 engravings in the cave, and they consist of mostly large animals like crocodiles and antelopes, and it even has humans dancing and hunting. But they also include something called fungoid rock art. Back in 1989, psychedelics researcher Giorgio Samarini claimed that the paintings that look like fungoids were proof that people inhabiting the Sahara Desert had taken psychedelics. There's one bit of artwork that depicts various masked figures in a line dressed as dancers surrounded by festoons, and each dancer has a mushroom-like object in their hand with lines coming out of the mushroom and connecting to the dancer's head. Now it's obviously open to interpretation on what the picture means, but I think you can see why Giorgio took away from it what he did. And believe it or not, psychedelics aside, the caves also house alien depictions, flying saucer-like figures in the sky, and people that look like humans but have one eye and just have very alien-like features. The pictures are quite creepy, I'm not gonna lie, but these caves seem to just have it all.
In our number 2 spot today, we have the Nazca Lines in Peru. Stretching across the barren desert of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines are one of the most mysterious wonders in the world. Etched into the earth between 500 BCE and 500 CE, these massive geoglyphs depict a menagerie of animals, soaring birds, intricate monkeys, and sprawling spiders, alongside complex geometric shapes. What's completely mind-boggling is that these designs are only fully visible from the air, leading some to speculate that the ancient Nazca people either had knowledge of flight or created them as signals to beings from the sky. Could they have predicted future aviation technology, or were they trying to communicate with extraterrestrials? While such theories add a thrilling layer of mystery, most researchers lean towards more terrestrial explanations. They believe the Nazca Lines had ritualistic or astronomical purposes, possibly serving as giant calendars or being part of water-related ceremonies in this arid region. Crafted by removing the dark topsoil to reveal lighter ground beneath, the creation of these geoglyphs was well within the technological reach of the Nazca culture. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Lascaux shaft scene. Deep within the winding passages of France's Lascaux cave, there is a mysterious painting known as the shaft scene that continues to baffle and intrigue. It depicts a human figure with a bird-like head lying seemingly lifeless near a wounded bison, its entrails dramatically spilling out. Nearby, a simple bird perched on a stick adds another layer of oddity. Some modern theorists have jumped on this haunting imagery, suggesting that it foretells future events or embodies concepts that were supposedly unknown at the time, perhaps even hinting at out-of-body experiences or other dimensions. Could this be an ancient prophecy, or a primitive understanding of ideas that would only emerge thousands of years later? Most scholars, however, see it differently. They interpret the scene as a shamanistic vision or a mythological narrative reflecting the rich spiritual life and storytelling traditions of Paleolithic humans. The bird-headed man might represent a shaman in a trance or a symbolic journey between worlds. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is a painting that comes all the way from at least 7,000 years ago. The painting is the main part of a mural that is located in Utah's Horseshoe Canyon. I know, it's not exactly a cave, but it's close, and it's a cool ancient painting. The entire mural is huge, as it is 300 feet long and features around 80 figures, and it was likely painted by ancient nomads. The techniques they used to create this image was by filling their mouths with red ochre tinted paint and then spraying it out onto the sandstone. This is all super cool to learn about, but here's the kind of creepy thing. No one knows why these paintings were created or what they represent. It is possible that maybe they just like to paint, but it is kind of crazy to think about what this figure could have meant to them. Was it part of a legend? Was it something they saw in real life? Was it a prediction of things to come? This is just one of those mysteries that unfortunately is buried with the people of the past, and we are just left to speculate exactly what this could be about. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Brazil Caves. This is an interesting cave painting because of the fact that it is widely debated when exactly it was created. The Serra de Capivara National Park is located in eastern Brazil, and it is the home to a bunch of different rock shelters that are decorated with incredible and elaborate cave paintings. This area includes scenes of rituals, hunting, trees, and animals, and some scientists believe that the oldest of the paintings dates back to at least 25,000 years ago. There are others who debate this because that would go against what we currently believe is the date of human settlement in the Americas, but hey, we weren't there, so who knows? In our number 5 spot today we have the vandalized cave painting. This painting is the oldest known painting in India, and it was found on the walls and ceiling of the Sittanavassal cave. It was originally believed that this painting was first created in the 1st century BCE. The paintings depict things like human figures, fish, elephants, birds, and different floral patterns. It is said that another artist ended up drawing over the original, which is an incredible shame and truly just rude. These paintings have been severely vandalized, and a lot of the areas are in quite bad shape. There's something about things that are this old that makes me feel like they should just not be messed with at all. Not only because it's rude, but also because you just never know what kind of things they may hold. In our number 4 spot today we have the droughts. Ancient drawings and writings were found covering the walls of the Diyu cave, which is located in central China, and a lot of them detail different droughts and such that were experienced during the time of the writing. According to these drawings, people would come to the cave for either water or to pray for rain in times of drought. The writings reveal some of the horrors that the people of the time experienced while going through these periods of drought, including severe starvation, social instability, and conflict between government and citizens. While these cave writings show us a different time in history, researchers say that these stalagmites are formed by dripping water and they form rings, sort of like how trees do, and these rings can give us insights into different things. Based on the patterns of these rings, scientists were able to corroborate the things that the cave writings were saying, but they were also able to make a grim prediction for the future, which is unfortunately that this region may again see one of these catastrophic droughts, this time in the late 2030s. In our number 3 spot today we have daydreaming. The paintings of the Lascaux caves are perhaps some of the most famous ancient cave paintings of all time. They date back to some 17,000 years ago, and a lot of the art seen on the walls of the cave is art that depicts animals. About 900 of them, with 605 being pretty identifiable. There are cattle, bison, some wild cats, bears, birds, but there's one weird thing. There's no reindeer, and there were definitely reindeer in the area at the time, and there's evidence that reindeer meat was used for food, so why didn't they draw any? Well, our best theory as to why is that perhaps these drawings and paintings are depicting animals that the humans at the time were daydreaming of. The animals that were too fast or too strong, or that they didn't have effective weapons for. The drawings showing what life could be like if only these humans had more. Does that sound familiar to any of us? Because I think it definitely should. In our number 2 spot today we have astronomy masters. This is a point that doesn't discuss just one cave painting in particular, but it's something that has been seen throughout many that have been discovered, and even in some of the oldest ever found. What I'm talking about is the early humans and their complex understanding of astronomy. A common theme among ancient cave paintings is the depiction of animals, but what was previously thought of as just a drawing is now being realized that instead of just animal symbols, they may actually be used to represent star constellations in the night sky, and the paintings of them may be used to represent dates or mark events such as comet strikes. I mean, for a second, imagine being an early human having no concept of science and looking at the night sky with no light pollution. It totally makes sense why they would try and keep track of these things, not to mention how terrifying would a comet or meteor be when you have no idea what they are. Researchers have been able to find thousands of sites and symbols that span through thousands of years that seem to be using the same sophisticated level of astronomy. It is likely that this understanding is exactly why human migration and navigation of the open seas was possible. Their brilliance truly was crucial to how we evolved as humans. In our number 1 spot today we have Lascaux. Lascaux is a complex of caves and different rock shelters that are located in northwestern Somalia. These caves and rock shelters contain some of the earliest known art in the Horn of Africa, and really just on the continent in general, which is quite the feat considering the rich history of humans in Africa. I mean, it's where we evolved into humans after all. These prehistoric cave paintings show cows in ceremonial robes accompanied by humans. They show domesticated dogs and even a giraffe, which I personally love. These paintings are actually very well preserved, which is fantastic, and they retain clear outlines and vibrant colors, which really gives us a clearer look into the lives of the people who created them.
Guanyingdong Cave in China has some of the earliest evidence of the lavalos stone tool technique, dating back anywhere from 170,000 to 80,000 years. But what is the lavalos technique? Well, this was a game changer in prehistoric technology, because instead of just smashing rocks together and hoping for the best, you'd start with a chunk of stone, usually flint or something similar, and shape it into a very specific form. This chunk is what archaeologists call a core. The idea was to carefully trim and prepare the surface of this core so that when they finally struck it in just the right spot, a flake would pop off that was already shaped into a useful tool. So they weren't shaping the flake after breaking it, they were shaping the core beforehand so that the flake came off ready to use. And since the shaping was intentional, it was repeatable. They could knock off several usable flakes from one core, all similar in shape and size. That's a huge step up from just hitting two rocks together and hoping something sharp breaks off. Hohle Fels cave in southwestern Germany is a gold mine for ancient stuff. Archaeologists found the Venus of Hohle Fels here, which is a tiny figurine carved from mammoth ivory. And yes, that means it was actually carved from a mammoth's tusk. This 2.5-inch figurine is supposed to be a woman. What immediately pops out are the cartoonishly large breasts and hips. In fact, they're so big you can barely see this woman's head. Now, I don't think this was meant to be a dig, although that's possible, but most archaeologists believe this was meant to symbolize fertility. Maybe this was some sort of goddess figure. People back then cared a lot about fertility because survival depended on it. I mean, I guess it still does, but it really did back then. So this figurine was probably super important. Along with that, they found musical instruments made from bird bones and, again, mammoth ivory, flutes with finger holes that could play actual notes, not just one sound. Carving those flutes would have taken very sharp tools and serious skill. I mean, making finger holes without cracking the bone would have been no easy task. The Sun Temple at Mesa Verde National Park in southwestern Colorado was built into a cliff alcove shaped kind of like a big D. The people who built it, the ancestral Pabloans, used real geometry to design it. The shape and structure follow certain patterns, like the 3-4-5 triangle, which is a simple way to make perfect corners. Something called the golden rectangle, a layout that shows up in art, nature, and architecture because it just feels balanced. Obviously, this kind of precision doesn't just happen by accident. They had to know how to measure, how to mark angles, and how to lay everything out so the pieces fit together exactly right. On top of that, parts of the temple line up with the sun during the summer and winter solstices, meaning the builders were also tracking how the sun moved through the sky. That would have helped them keep time, mark the seasons, and plan ceremonies and planting cycles. Blombos Cave is on the southern coast of South Africa, looking out over the Indian Ocean. Inside, archaeologists found pieces of ochre, which is iron-rich clay that turns a rusty red or brown color when it dries. It's soft enough to carve, but durable enough to hold those carvings for tens of thousands of years. People back then would grind it up to make paint or use it as a kind of an early crayon, but what they found in this cave were blocks of ochre with carefully carved patterns. These engravings are around 75,000 years old. Some have cross-hatched lines, some look like grids, others have angles or zigzags. They're more than just random scratches. They were made with tension, using stone or bone tools to create repeated, even patterns, and it's not like they were carving animals or people. You know, the usual stuff you see in cave art. These were abstract shapes, which doesn't sound all that impressive, but think of what this means. They weren't just copying what they saw. They were thinking in symbols. As for what the symbols mean, maybe it was some sort of language, an early form of code, or maybe it was just decorative. Whatever the purpose though, it proves that people that far back were already thinking creatively, instead of just hunting and surviving like animals. Altamira Cave in northern Spain has some of the best preserved prehistoric paintings ever discovered. These were found in the late 1800s, and at that time people thought they were fake, because no one believed humans that old could make art this good. The paintings date back around 36,000 years. They mostly show bison, deer, and horses, done in natural colors like reds, blacks, and browns. What's crazy though is how lifelike some of these are. Instead of just arbitrarily applying paint to the walls, in some cases they actually use the curves of the cave to give the animals more shape. Beyond that, there are again symbols, dots, and handprints. Some researchers think those markings might have been used to track lunar or seasonal cycles, acting like an early calendar. Tassili Najir is a massive plateau in the middle of the Sahara Desert in southeastern Algeria. Here you'll find thousands of ancient rock paintings and carvings spread across more than 70,000 square kilometers. Most of it's animals, hunting scenes, day-to-day life. Pretty standard for prehistoric art, but there's a small group of figures that really stand out. These ones don't look like hunters or herders or anything immediately recognizable. Some look like they're wearing helmets or full-body suits. A few appear to have large, round heads with no facial features and limbs that are thin and stretched. Some call them the Great Martian Gods. One of the most famous is known as the Roundhead, a figure with a bulbous head surrounded by smaller human-like figures reaching up toward it. Some even appear to be hovering or floating, not standing on any surface. And there are also shapes that look kind of like discs or capsules. Could they be depictions of deities or shamans in ritual clothing? Definitely possible. But what if these deities were actually something they were seeing? Visitors from the sky. The story of the Drapa stone starts in 1937 when a Chinese expedition led by Professor Chi Pute supposedly discovered a burial site high in the Bayan Har Mountains near the border of Tibet and China. Inside they claimed to have found small skeletons with large skulls and thin, frail bodies, about 4 feet tall. Alongside the remains were hundreds of round stone discs, each about a foot in diameter, with a small hole in the center and 2 spiral grooves carved into the surface. Those spirals were said to contain thousands of tiny characters that could only be seen with magnifying glasses. Years later, a man named Sum Nui allegedly translated them at the Beijing Academy for Prehistoric Research. The translation apparently told the story of an alien spacecraft that crash-landed in the mountains 12,000 years before. The beings, called the Drapa, had come from another star system and were stranded. Some of the locals accepted them, others did not. The discs supposedly recorded their journey, their crash, their struggle to survive. Nui's report was said to have been dismissed by the academic community. He was mocked so badly that he left China and ended up dying in Japan. And the story resurfaced in 1966 from a Soviet journalist who wrote about the discs. But no museum ever officially displayed the stones, and they've since disappeared.